Welcome to the Performance Enhancing Podcast. It's like steroids for your brain. A podcast for people looking to live life at their peak potential. Chock full of real-world tools and knowledge that you can apply in your life today. By providing you with a lens into the lives, beliefs, practices, and actions of those who are already living extraordinary lives, the Performance Enhancing Podcast will help you shift your mindset or create that change in your daily rituals and habits so you can explode with success in the areas of life that are most important to you. So get ready for another dose of Performance Enhancing Podcast with SatoriPrime. Here's your host, Ilan Ferdman.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Performance Enhancing Podcast with your host, Ilan Ferdman. And today is part 2 of my interview with Ades. If you didn't check out part 1, basically what we did, Kim was gracious enough to share with us one of her clients' journals. Now, we obviously kept it anonymous. And we spent the podcast analyzing this journal and taking you through the process that Kim does with her clients so that people can start really getting insights into why the power of journaling and what kind of insights you can take for yourself in your life. So in part 1, we really spoke specifically about that person and the type of mindset and gave you some insights. In part 2, we actually took that same instant and started looking at it more from if you were a parent, how could you use this? And then that spiraled into a whole conversation about parenting and children and raising them and all that kind of good stuff. So found it very, very enlightening myself and wrote down some amazing key takeaways. So if you've ever wanted to learn how to empower your kids so that they can start making powerful choices in their lives and you don't have to be the drill sergeant all the time, then you'll absolutely love this Performance Enhancing Podcast. Until we speak again, enjoy part 2 of my interview with Ades.
Yeah. Anyway, wow, great conversation.
Yeah, amazing. From a little story about a dog.
Exactly. And really, if you think about how when we coach people, we get a journal from them on a daily basis. So the volume of data that we get is so rich. We can start to connect the dots between the dog and the wife and the business partner and the child and all of that. And so we get a really, really full, rich picture of the person we're working with, and we can move their thinking very far in a short period of time.
Yeah. And also, I think you get to see the patterns of language that they're using. That word probably has come up multiple times.
Hundreds of times.
Yeah. Do you, by the way, I'm just curious, do you have a software that allows people to see what words they use most often in their journal?
That's interesting. And it's basically, we could find a way to do that. Obviously, they're using our software. It's called Journal Engine to journal, but there isn't a scanning piece that says what are the most commonly used words right now. But I'm imagining that wouldn't be hard to make happen.
No, I'll tell you what you can do. So on blog posts, like on WordPress, there's a plugin and it's called the Word Cloud.
Yeah.
And it will basically look for, and if you've seen it, people don't really use it on blogs anymore, but you may have seen it back in the day where it's like, the more a word is used, the bigger it is in that cloud. And so if you're writing say we write about online marketing and Facebook marketing and stuff like that, then that's probably going to be a word that we use quite often.
Right.
But it would be really interesting, I think, for people to see that on their own. Because sometimes you write, it's unconscious. You just write. And that's the word the world is. But if this person saw a cloud and the biggest word in that cloud was disrespect, can't argue with that. He's going to be like, holy crap. Do it. That word runs my life, really. And, I think someone told me that they journal on WordPress only for that. So they can see at the end of the year, what was their most used word.
Interesting.
And alter your language. Because if your most used word is a negative word, then that is a really good indicator that your thoughts are predominantly negative.
That's interesting. I'm going to look that up.
Yeah. It just occurred to me. Now, what else, I'm just trying to think if a listener, say, doesn't even get coaching, I still think that them journaling on their own and looking and seeing these patterns would be great. Although I don't know if you're not trained, would you really look for patterns?
Well, I mean, one of the biggest things is when you start to journal, if you're just an independent journaler, go back and read what you've journaled. So journal for a month and go back to day one on the first day of the month and start reading what you've written.
Gotcha.
And see how often you're writing the same things. See if you still are struggling with the same issues 1 month later. And so the process of rereading what you've written in the past is hugely informing or informative. And so that's one thing you want to do. The second thing you want to do as you kind of get used to journaling, people ask me, what is your recommendation? What do you recommend for people who are journaling? And journaling is a place to unload. And so use that place to unload. Like, get it out if you have something that's bothering you. So don't worry about being negative. Be negative. Be all the negative you can possibly be.
Yeah.
But then at a certain point, what you want to do is literally say, it's time to turn myself around. So here's all the crap in my life, and I've written it down. And and I tell people, when you think you're done, keep going. So just keep going. But then at a certain point, really physically almost pivot yourself, turn yourself towards what it is you want. And at that point, you start to say, okay, here's how I'm going to deal with this problem, or here's how I'd rather be, or here's the kind of mood I want to be in, here's the kind of guy I want to marry, here's what I want, here are the things I want, here's what I have, and it's horrible, awful, and terrible, but here's where I'm heading. And you always want to end your journal with the here's where I'm heading. And so you're learning to literally move your mood towards the direction that's important to you, that towards your desires. And so that's the journaling process, to unload and then pivot.
Yeah. By the way, great movie that anyone that's listening to this and getting some insights out of this, Pixar came out with that movie called Inside Out.
I saw it yesterday.
Did you? I just took my kids also this weekend. What'd you think?
I liked it. The ending was a little disappointing, but I really liked it. I thought it was really cool. Very cool movie. I love the fact that they found a way to say sadness is important.
Yeah.
Happiness is important, but so is sadness.
Yeah.
All the emotions are important.
That was really, I didn't expect that to be the wrap up, especially in the kids movie. Mm-hmm. I thought it was so beautiful. There were so many things that happen in there that are really, really profound, that kids, and most adults for that matter, have no clue that they happen. I mean, even, and not to ruin it for anybody, but like the core memories, right? And how when a child goes through that phase of growing up, like at the age of 12, how those core memories, like when you transfer from being a little kid to kind of this young adult, how all of those things naturally change. And that's where parents, I feel like, really struggle to communicate with their child, because this little perfect angel that you had is now an independent thinker and creating all these things. And even that they put in there, I thought was genius. And the memory deletions, and it was just so clever. I walked out, I was like, I could easily watch that movie 10 more times and just enjoy the little nuances of it. So yeah, I highly recommend it. It was actually one of the highest rated movies on IMDb in history right now.
Really?
Yeah, it's got a 9.1. There's only 4 other movies in the 9s.
That's amazing.
Yeah, amazing. So it's definitely resonating with people, and I think it's just an unbelievable message. And you remind me of something else. You were talking about turning it around. It's a distinction that we created at home, semi by accident, and now it just kind of stuck with my kids. One day my son was just not happy and just throwing a bit of a tantrum, and I kind of left him in there and, let him be with himself and do the whole thing. And then he came downstairs and he was happy. And how kids are, they like, everything is temporal, right? But I actually really acknowledged him, and I said, I'm so proud of you for turning it around. And I was trying to get him to go through the process. Like, what did you do to turn it around? Or did you have a different thought? Did you change your thought? Did you breathe? Did you think of something that you liked? but he was too young at the time to really comprehend it. Now we can do it. It works much better. But now both he and my daughter, and I never had this conversation with my daughter, if like they're in a tizzy, they'll like do whatever they got to do. And they're like, I turned it around. And they're so proud of themselves when they do it. And it just become this like little thing that we do in the house, you know?
Well, what you're doing is you're empowering your kids, and you're saying it's okay to have a negative mood, as long as it doesn't last forever. And here are the tools. Here's what you need to know. Here's what you need to have to be able to take yourself anywhere you want to go.
Yep.
And this negative place isn't a great place to stay forever. And here's another great place for you to go. Here you go. Drive yourself there.
Yeah.
And so what you're doing is you're really, really empowering your kids. You're giving them the greatest gift to say you are in control of the way you feel.
Yeah.
Not in my hands, just because I'm your parent. Actually, you're the one who runs the show.
Yeah.
And, here's your driver's license. Go.
Yeah. I think though for parents, and that's what I really appreciate in the movie. It is very painful to see our kids, quote unquote, not behave. And I think for a lot of parents, like we're around that circle all the time now, when their kids are in public, what I see parents get really, and it's all from insecurities about themselves and, oh my God, what will people think of me and all this kind of crap. And I'm like, okay, he's a kid, he's allowed to freak out. Like they're not angels all the time. They don't behave well all the time. And I think if you can understand and let that go, they transfer so much faster into this. You're not feeding it. You're not just going in there and going, stop it. Stop it. We're in public. Like, stop crying. It's like, okay, you want to cry? Cry. Like, I carried my daughter after the movie. It was late. We got out late and she was already exhausted. And I knew she was tired. So she's like cranky and crying in the mall. And like people are looking. And I'm like, I'm just walking and looking around at how uncomfortable other people are getting. And I'm just like, I don't care. You want to cry? Cry. It's really, really funny.
It's so funny. The other day I was in a shoe store with my daughter. She's 15, and there were shoes for all age groups in this particular shoe store. And this mother walked in with her daughter, and her daughter picked out a pair of shoes, and they were kind of more pretty than they were practical. And the mother freaked out. Like, she just lost it with her daughter. Her daughter's name was Lexi. Lexi, if you're going to choose those shoes, we're going to go home right now. You're completely annoying me. And I'm thinking to myself, who's having the tantrum here?
Wow.
Who? Right? And so what I see is the very thing that parents don't want kids to do, they do themselves.
Yes.
Over and over and over again. And so, that whole issue of temper tantrums very often is dealt with by an equal temper tantrum with the same volume and intensity.
Yeah.
So you can't do that. Right? Like when your kid is having a temper tantrum, you can't match their level. You've got to change your level in order to bring them down.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's very, very interesting, because when you see your kid behaving in any way, the emotion it triggers in you, because it's a reflection of you, is just sometimes out of control. And so we teach parents to separate themselves from the experience and to kind of demonstrate and model the behavior they want their kids to take on. And that's sometimes one of the hardest jobs any parent has to do.
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth. I mean, it's great in theory. It's very difficult in that moment to disconnect. I think when you're at home, one level, but when you're out in public and that happens, just parents get weird. I mean, we all get weird. It's like, oh my God, what are they going to think about me? It means I'm a bad parent if my child. It's like, honestly, if you talk to any parent, like, we all deal with it. They're kids. They're human beings. You're not happy every single day of your life. There are days that you want to rip people's heads off. It's like, they're allowed that too. And that's why I loved in the movie that it wasn't this like bullshit Disney happy ending, but they made it really, really profound. I was like, wow, I did not see that coming at all. And it's just like life, the two sides to every coin. I read this incredible quote the other day, which was basically like, I'll paraphrase it, but it was something like, the concept was that everything that's good, we try to hang on to, and everything that's bad, we try to resist and push away. And he was just saying, like, don't hang on to it because it will change. Like, even the good stuff, it all morphs and changes. So, like, don't worry about it. Don't hang on to it. Just enjoy it while it's here. And then the bad, don't resist it. That's going to change too. That's going to go away too. So just like be in the flow and take it for what it is, an experience. And I think kids do that so much faster than adults anyway, if you just kind of let it run its course. But, you know, parents get weird.
Yeah, they get weird and they don't trust their kids to be able to bounce back, and they have to interfere. And that's when things get a lot worse.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause now you've given them a challenge. And like if a kid, my kids are super stubborn. They really know what they want. And but in talking to a lot of people that tend to be very stubborn and opinionated, know what they want, to them, not getting it becomes the game. So if there's like, they always need challenges. They always need to figure out something to overcome. By you resisting that, you've now given them a challenge. You've given them a game to play. If they don't have that game to play, they'll run it really fast. It just, like you said, we interfere.
Well, and I remember when my kids were young and they wanted things, I'd say, here's how you get it. Let me give you the rules of this game. If you want that, here's how you get it.
How old were they?
You know what? I remember a trip that I took with them. Like we went to like a little city nearby. It was like Amish County or something like that. And, you know, we walked the streets and there was a market and everything. But one of the things we did, and I don't know where, but it was the points game. And every time they did something nice or said something nice to each other, they would get points. So if my son would hold the door for my daughter, he'd get 5 points. If my daughter would say thank you or whatever, she would get 5 points. And so there was this accumulation of points. And they were counting their points all day long for 2, straight days. It was a count. It was a point count. And at the end, each point was worth, I don't know, a cent. So they each got $5. And it wasn't they didn't know what they were going to get at the end. Like they had no idea. But the issue was that I wanted them to pay attention to the good things they were doing and accumulate the good things they were doing.
Yeah, really smart.
So that game actually went down in history in my house. Remember the time we counted points? Right? But the concept was I didn't want to reprimand them for the things they were doing wrong.
Yeah.
In fact, I would just kind of ignore that and only give them points when they were doing kind and nice things.
Yeah.
So those kind and nice things expanded. They grew. They multiplied. They gave themselves points. It didn't really matter. I didn't care. Have as many points as you want. Just keep doing nice things. So, but that's, a concept that we work with. What you focus on grows. When you're constantly telling them not to do the bad stuff, you're focusing on the bad stuff.
Yeah.
So find, we call it snap the picture when it looks good. When they're doing the right things, make it big.
Yeah. Yeah. That's been a big change for us. I think it's very easy to do, don't do this, don't do that. Like it's very natural. It's the way we operate with animals. Like if you've ever trained a dog, it's the same way. It's always like, don't do this. It's much more difficult and takes a lot more awareness to do the positive stuff. It's really great when you have a partner that's on board with you because yes. Like someone sees something that the other person doesn't and vice versa. And I've also noticed that we rarely ever get heated by our children or get our buttons pushed at the same exact time. Very rarely, like almost never. So It's always one person is way calmer than the other one. And it literally will take a touch on the arm, the shoulder, a look sometimes to get the other person to snap out of that mode, breathe, and just go back to, normal. because again, you're human. They're going to trigger you. That's why they're here. They're here to push the buttons.
Right.
It's just beautiful when you have someone to support you and help you. And
well, you brought up something really important, and it's the whole idea of stop telling your kids what not to do. Instead, tell them what to do. So instead of saying, stop jumping on the couch, say, come sit with me and we'll read a book. Yep. That's a totally different message. One is restrictive, constraining. The other one is completely open and inviting. So tell your kids what you want, not what you don't want. And that switch takes a lot of muscle.
Yeah, a lot of muscle.
But has a huge impact in building a relationship and really modeling the behavior, but guiding your kids in the right direction, as opposed to having temper tantrums and
I think you said it before too, which is we as parents sometimes have our kids do as I say, not as I do. And that's not how kids learn. Kids learn everything by watching and observing. I noticed that like couples that we know that argue a lot, their kids take that on and they speak a very specific way. And I was just like, holy moly, how did this 3-year-old start communicating this way? And then, our family we're very loving, like always hugging and kissing our kids, each other, our parents, our grandparents. This is just a family thing. My kids will not go to bed without hugging and kissing each other. Just will not. They will throw tantrums if that is not allowed. And it's really interesting to see how they do that. And behind the wheel, I'm better now, but I used to be I would get annoyed and I'd make these sounds like, ugh, right? If someone did something stupid. So I'm sitting in my car. My son was like two and change. And this person does something stupid, tries to turn left from lane that they shouldn't have. And I'm about I didn't even say it. I'm about to say something. And from the back, my 2-year-old son goes, "Oh, you idiot." And I was just like, oh God, he did not just do that, And I don't know if it was a perfect coincidence timing or not, but I took it to be wow, he's just learned this from me. And it actually made me really aware of how I am behind the wheel. And I stopped it.
Yeah, you got to stop it. And you know what? I talk with my husband about that all the time. I'm like, love the other drivers. And it's so funny because I tell them, you know what? When I drive, people let me in. They don't cut me off. They wave at me. They tell me I forgot to put the cap on my gas tank. They help me. They save me. They protect me. They're not my enemies. I love the other drivers. And he looks at me like I'm from Mars.
Yeah.
He's perfectly happy to talk to them, from across the window. I'm like, you know what? They can't even hear you. Save it. Love the drivers.
I know that's one of my most difficult things is that, but it really depends. I've spoken to a lot of people recently and it's just made me much more aware of how different every single human being is. I just did this incredible product with a guy named Steven Sisler, who's a behavioral analyst. And there's very clear 4 type of personality traits that really run us. And depending on how high you are on the charts, kind of depends on how you operate. And one of them is my modality or speeds, I should say, is fast and faster. That's the way I operate.
Yeah.
There's this whole other, the whole other people that are slow and slower. So the example he told me is, I'm like a Corvette, for example, on the road, where if I need to get off an exit, it takes me a split second, car turns, gone. Other people that are slow are like an 18-wheeler, right? So if they miss that turn, they got to go all the way up the highway, do a U-turn, come all the way back, put their blinker a mile before the turn, get into, that's the way they move. And those people tend to drive Volvos. So Volvos historically have really annoyed me. And now every time I see a Volvo, I'm like, oh, you're the slow person. And I'm behind them. I'm like, all right, take your time, do your thing.
See, and when I'm behind a slow person, I think to myself, gee, I wonder if they're protecting me from a police car up there trying to stop cars for speeding.
Yeah.
So, like I have that real awareness, or maybe not awareness, but a consciousness that, whatever's happening right here, right now is probably in my best interest. So I'm just going to go with it.
Yeah. I mean, I had a moment where this guy is in Brooklyn, and this guy cut me off right before. So the light was just turned yellow, and I was like coming pretty fast, and he swerved into the open lane and stopped because he didn't want to go through. And I was just like, after I slammed the brakes and we were fine, I was just so fuming. And as I'm fuming, a car flies through the intersection, flies like 60 plus miles an hour, straight through a red light. And I shit you not, like I would have been T-boned, possibly dead, if this person hadn't cut me off. And ever since that moment, I've had the same exact kind of conversation, which is, God, universe, whatever you want to call it, like sends us angels when we need them. And that was just one of those. Could have been probably the end of my life if that guy hadn't cut me off. And rather than being pissed, which I was for that instant, right? As soon as that happened, I was like, oh my God, thank you.
Exactly. Exactly.
So I totally agree.
So what would it be like if you said thank you beforehand?
I know. Well, that's the practice then.
Yeah.
So I try to do that now. It's not, I can't say that I'm not batting 1,000.
No. Well, let's try to squeeze a few in this afternoon. How's that?
Awesome, Kim. First of all, thank you so much for sharing that journal. Hopefully this
it was a pleasure.
Yeah, hopefully this gentleman will not be mad. It was very, very great insight. I hope for all of you guys listening, you kind of get to start to see the pattern, the power of patterns, the power of language, the power of this kind of coaching, and how in the most mundane of situations, there are massive, massive life lessons, even if you may not have the eyes to see them. But that's why there are professionals that do that for you. Kim, any final thoughts?
No, happy to talk to anyone who's interested in taking a closer look at what we do, and just check us out, frameofmindcoaching.com.
Perfect. We'll have, again, the links and resources as always for you guys. And until we speak again, have an amazing, amazing day, everyone.
Thank you.
And lastly, I want to just ask you guys for a favor here. If you wouldn't mind, write this email address down. It's just Ilan, ILAN @SatoriPrime.com. And here's what I want you to email me. Guy and I are throwing around an idea to start a mastermind for mindset. So very similar to the concept that Kim does. We'll do it in a smallish type of group setting. You guys will have things that you're going to be working on, and we're going to look every other week at a concept and then actually coach you guys one-on-one in areas of life that are really important to you guys. So 2 things I want you to write me. A, is this something that you'd be interested in? And B, what would something like that be worth to you? So if there was a monthly fee associated with it, what would something like that be worth to you? We're really highly considering putting something like this together, but being that you guys know us really well, and I think if you guys have gotten anything as far as mindset from this, then you probably understand how we coach and what we're passionate about. So I'd love to hear from you guys. So again, Ilan, ILAN @SatoriPrime.com, and just let me know if A, that's something you'd be interested in, and B, what would that be worth to you? All right. Thanks so much, guys, and we'll see you on the next Performance Enhancing Podcast.
Thank you for joining us on this week's Performance Enhancing Podcast. We've taken this pep talk and created a custom action guide so you know exactly what action steps to take now to grow your business. Just head over to SatoriPrime.com/podcast and download it for free. Also, please leave a comment and rate this podcast on iTunes. It'll help us get the word out. Thanks for listening. Now, go and implement. We'll see you next time.
Did you run through doors? till you hit the